Hey guys, this is Kristen with Larson Digital. Today I'm going to show you some quick and easy edits for your digital images. Now these are going to be simple fixes that anybody can do. I'm going to use the software Pixlr because number one, it's free, and then also because it's easy to use. So first you're going to want to go to pixlr.com, and then when this screen comes up, you're just going to click on Open Pixlr Editor. Now you might get a message about Adobe Flash if you don't already have that installed. You're going to need that installed to use the software. Okay, now once you get to this page, you're going to want to go to Open Image from Computer. So just click on that. And then you're going to want to find your picture on your computer and then just click Open once you found that. Now, before I jump into editing, I first want to take a moment to look at my picture and see what needs to be fixed. You don't want to be just aimlessly making adjustments. So the first thing that I think is the most blaring problem is that this picture is discolored. It has a strong red cast on it, and that is because this image came from a 35mm slide. And as that type of film ages, it degrades, and then it creates these discolored pictures. And then also, if you look here, the shadowing, it's definitely got some issues with its exposure. It's really dark right here. And if you look at the weeds, you can just tell it's definitely needs to be lightened up. So we're going to do some of those things. Now, the first thing that I want to do before I start editing my picture is to look at the crop. Now, this crop right here I'm actually fine with. But you might have a picture where the subject isn't the main focus of the picture. So what you're going to want to do is grab this little icon right here and just click on it. It's pretty universal. And then just hover over the one corner and then drag down. Now when you go to adjust it, you want to hold down your shift key before you start moving it up, because this will make sure you keep your aspect ratio so that you can make reprints and things like that. Otherwise, if I let go, so now I've let go, you can end up with some pretty odd shaped pictures. So you're not going to want to play with that. Or, I mean, you want to play with that, but just make sure you hold your shift key down. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do with this picture is I want to tackle this coloring right here, the darkness, before I tackle the color. So this adjustment tab right here has lots of really fantastic features that anyone should play with. So the first thing I want to do is adjust the brightness and contrast, because right here on her face, it's definitely too dark. So we can adjust that to get rid of the shadowing. So you can either drag the brightness up or down. Now what this does is it's going to affect your whites. So it's going to take all of your white points and make them just a little bit brighter. Your contrast is going to take your darker points and make the parts that are darker. So we're just going to add just a little bit of brightness to it. Not too much. You don't want to go too far. So I think I'm just going to take this up to about 10. And then I'm going to play with my contrast, see if it needs a little extra contrast. Because sometimes when you add brightness, you lose a little bit of your details. So sometimes you need to add that back in. Okay, so that definitely looks a lot better than it did at first. Now the next thing you're going to want to do, at least for this picture in particular, is that I want to adjust the coloring. So I'm going to go up here to Adjustment. And you've got a couple options. You've got color balance, color vibrance. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Hue and saturation. So I want to keep this really, really simple. So I'm just going to go to color balance, okay? And it breaks this down really easy. You've got your red, green, and blue offset. And what that means is you can adjust each individual color, and it will react with this picture, and they all kind of interact with each other. Usually you don't just pull one out, so you kind of play with a couple colors. So if you take all the red out, it's going to leave a blue picture, okay? And then if you take all of your green, if you take all your green out, you're going to end up with a bright pink picture. Or if you drag a ton of green, obviously that's pretty obvious. It's going to make your whole picture green. So now if you take the blue out, it turns it yellow. So every time you kind of add or take a color out, it's all going to interact with each other. So first thing I want to do, it's red. So I'm going to need to pull the red out, but I might need to add a little bit of green, because if you remember, if you pull green out, it kind of goes pink, which is also a warmer tone. So maybe adding green will help combat the red. Now obviously we're making this too green, but if you look, I haven't even pulled out any red. I've just added green. and you can tell like it's definitely helped with my red issue. So the point I'm trying to make here is just because you need to take red out of this picture doesn't mean your only option is to pull red out, because it's going to add blue. Okay, so you might want to add some green. Or if you have a blue photo and you need to add yellow, you know, you would drag it that way, and you just kind of want to play around with it. So I'm going to pull out a little bit of red. And now I want to add a little bit of green. Let's see, let's place our red a little bit more. There we go. I like that. Okay, so I have taken out 16 points on the red, and I've added 6 points of green. I'm not going to play with my blue or yellow, but if I wanted to, maybe because I took so much red out, I made it look a little bit blue. Let's pull this back a little further and make it a little blue, a little cool. Now, if I want to pull out a little bit of that blue, I'm going to add some of the yellow to balance that out. And again, actually, I think this is the best adjustment right here. So now my red is at -24, my green is at 6, and my blue is at -5. So I had to kind of play with all of those different colors, when in reality, I just wanted to pull out that red. And like I said, it's because all your colors are interacting with one another. So now I'm just going to hit OK. Okay, so I still think that some of the shadowing is, I would still like to kind of lighten this up a little bit more. So now we can go up to here, and so now I'm going to adjust the brightness a little bit more, even though we already did that. I want to maybe brighten it up just a tiny bit more. And I'm going to have to add a tiny bit more contrast to balance that out. Okay. Now, if you have a picture that you want to make black and white, you just go up here. You can actually, there's a couple ways to go about it. A really simple way is to go up to Adjustments, go to Hue and Saturation, and then you grab this and you just drag it all the way to one side, and that literally just pulls all your color out of the picture. We're not going to do that because I like my pictures in color. Okay, so one of the other things I wanted to talk about is adding color saturation or vibrance. They are a little bit different. Color vibrance, I think, is nice because it doesn't grab so heavy on the reds, and it doesn't make your skin tones look as fake. Because if you go really high, really this is what I want to show you. If you go really high with your saturation, you can make a photo look completely ridiculous. So you want to use this in moderation. But one thing I've noticed when playing with saturation is it really grabs onto your reds. And so I may want these weeds to be a little greener and brighter so they don't look so ugly. But it's going to make her skin tones a little too bright, and all the reds, her socks, the tricycle, way too bright. So I like to use the Vibrance tool, and that's going to enhance your colors, but it doesn't pick up so strong on the reds. So I'm not going to go too crazy here. I actually bumped it up all the way to about 30, which is quite a bit. Okay, so now we've got a much better picture, our before and after. So I am just going to save my photo. Now you always want to save it as a new copy, just because you don't ever want to override your first one. So I'm going to rename this file to Color Correction After. When you are saving your file, make sure you save it as high as quality as possible. You can always compress it later, but you cannot undo it once you've compressed your file. So drag it all the way to 100% quality and then just hit OK. And then we're just going to save it right here. And that is how you do some really basic edits using Pixlr as your editing software. I hope this has been really helpful to you. Be sure to check out our other videos online.